Good afternoon. My name is JP de Oliveira. I'm the wandering clinician. I'm coming to you with great sadness this week after what happened in Israel. It's been very traumatic and very sad. Also, I feel really sad for the Palestinians and I feel sad for the Israelis. I don't pick a side. I am not saying that one side is right and the other is wrong. I think that everybody who is experiencing what's going on is a victim. I want to talk about the relationship between Hamas and the Israeli. The Hamas has justified their action by dehumanizing the Israelis, thinking that they could go into a crowd of people and hurt them. And by doing so, they justify their action using their religion, their belief. They dehumanize the people that were hurting because they felt um, better than them. Dehumanization is one of the eighth way you can morally disengage yourself from your action, where you feel okay hurting someone and you don't feel a responsibility from what you're doing. It's almost like you justify your actions with a way of shifting your responsibility away from you. And so, what's really upsetting to me is not so much, well, Hamas is very upsetting to me, but what's really upsetting to me in the United States is that on social media, people will talk about the victim horribly by taking away their humanity. They remove away their humanity, and then they basically say that they should be victimized because of what one belief, maybe religion or social, activism or what have you. And so I wanted to make a video about that to talk to you about the danger of um, moral disengagement because it's the same type of moral disengagement people used when they were trading slaves, where they felt they were better, superior, smarter, greater, more nobler than the people they were abusing. Every time somebody looks like someone and takes away their humanity from them, they do it because of greed, because of religion, because of social values, social norms. And that's not okay. So I want to cover the moral disengagement issues, and humanization is number one for me in my book. When you hear, for example, the leader of a country that talks about another group or another country disparagingly and says things that are hurtful, it's a way to justify racism. For example, Adolf Hitler, when he talked about the gypsies or the Jews or anybody for that matter, and he felt like he had the right to invade their country and hurt them because of his moral superiority and also Aryanism and so forth. So I will cover every single one of those topics, but dehumanization is number one. Thank you. So I want to go over the different types of moral disengagement theories. There's eight of them. I already mentioned humanization. Then you have victim blaming, euphemistic labeling, and moral justification. That involves downplaying or denying the negative consequences of immoral actions. It's a way to distance yourself from your responsibility, the responsibility of your actions, and to avoid feeling shame or guilt. So, victim blaming is exactly what it sounds like. For example, a man who's in a relationship with a woman, his wife or whatever, and beats her up, and then says, "I only did this because you made me do it." You blame the victim. Euphemistic labeling is when you would turn around and say, "Well, it's not as bad as you think it is. I barely pushed you around, even though you punched her and slapped her." And moral justification is like, well, that's the role of I'm the man, you're the woman, and in my faith or in my society, men have the right to put their hands on a woman, even though there's no way you can justify those actions. You find a way, a loophole in your mind to say, hey, you know what? Since the dawn of time, men have been hitting women, and that's just the way things are. You know, you're morally justifying yourself, even though it's unjustifiable. And so and then the next two are advantageous comparison and distortion of consequences. So advantageous comparison and distortion of consequences are used to justify immoral behaviors by comparing uh, your behavior to seemingly worse alternative, or you minimize the harm caused. For example, you said, well, I only punched you in the face. I could have killed you. It's not that big of a deal. I could have killed you, but I only punched you. It's not that bad. And advantage, the comparison is like saying, hey, the neighbor's wife gets beat up every day. You only get beat up once a week. That's not that bad. Finally, you have displacement of responsibility and diffusion of responsibility. So displacement of responsibility is when you shift the blame on someone else or on something else to further absolve yourself from any type of responsibility. So you could say, you made me do it, which is victim blaming, but also displacement of responsibility. And diffusion of responsibility is like, this is the way we do things in our society. This is the way things work. If you had behaved better. And moral disengagement does not, it's not just one of those aspects that come into play. They sometimes come into play, most of them come into play at the same time. So talking about Israel and Palestine, Hamas decided to go into a crowd of young people paragliding their way into a festival of music and killing and hurting people. And in their mind, they are feeling justified to do this, but it's definitely using moral disengagement. That's definitely saying, hey, you know what? Those people aren't human. They're not like us. They are. It's their fault. Victim blaming. It's not as bad as what they've done to us. Euphemistic labeling. They justify it morally, saying, you know what, it's a religious matter. They compare themselves to others, advantageous comparison. They distort the consequences of their actions, saying this is war when they were attacking civilians. They displace their responsibility onto the victim and onto other people, and they diffuse their responsibility. So now people are going to say, well, but Israeli are responding in such with the Palestinian. And I will be like, you know what? Yeah, they are. But the difference is that the government of Israel right now, which I don't agree with all their decisions, is trying to prevent more killing of innocent people. And they have said to Palestinians, hey, you know what? We're going to come in some areas. You need to leave that area. We're really looking for the terrorists. We're not looking for the civilian. We're not responsible. Whereas Hamas went and killed people, women, babies, you know, children, men, whomever, who were defenseless without, they were just minding their own business and they just showed up and hurt them. And so I just want to make that point is that what's going on in Israel and Palestine is horrible, horrible. And it's really hard sometimes to sit and watch and go, okay, you know, this does not affect me or doesn't touch me. We might be desensitized as a society, but I hope we're not that desensitized that we don't feel pain and suffering and harm when we see people getting hurt. And I want to say that when I see a Palestinian get hurt, I get really, really sad. When I see an Israeli get hurt, I get really, really sad. When I see people who are innocent getting hurt, I get really, really sad. And I feel that I'm lucky to live in Texas. I'm lucky to be watching this from afar. I don't start to comprehend the the people that are looking at this from afar and judging people wanting to defend themselves or judging victims. I don't comprehend that. To me, that doesn't make any sense at all. How can you watch a situation from and act as an activist, call yourself an activist, and go, you know what? I think side A is right. I think side B is right. I think that war is terrible. Conflicts are terrible. And I think that when there is a conflict, everybody loses, regardless. And I feel that it's important to not dehumanize these people, regardless of their religion, their skin tone, their, where they live in the world, and their level of wealth, their gender, their sexual orientation. Every time we look at a group and we take away their humanity from them, and then we blame them for some bad actions that are happening to them, or we downplay it as if it's not a big deal, or we downplay the consequences, or we compare a situation to another situation which is unrelated to try to make it sound not as bad, or when we displace the responsibility from the people that are perpetrating those acts on people that didn't do it. um, it's a shame. It's beyond a shame. And I feel like as a society, we have to hold ourselves accountable. And I'm going to say it, and I'm generally don't get political in those videos, but I'm going to say it. Hamas is a terrorist group. It is not okay to go and hurt people. And they are the very definition of terrorism. And if you don't know what terrorism means, look it up. There are dictionaries online, papers, libraries. They are not guided by moral principles. They don't follow ethics. They're not ethical. They're not their actions are not motivated in self-defense. They were premeditated, and they basically attacked poor, unfortunate people. If that would have taken place in the US, I can tell you for a fact that the US would not be sitting down and saying, well, you know what, let's negotiate peace with that group. We would be looking for them to arrest them, to judge them, sentence them, and most likely give them the death penalty. There wouldn't be like any negotiation. I'm not for the death penalty, by the way, but I will tell you, when somebody comes in to a crowd of young people who are playing music and having fun, to hurt them, I don't expect the people in response are going to be loving. And then to the people who were online saying, oh, this is not really taking place, this didn't really happen, this is all made up, get your head out of your ass. Stop with the misinformation. Stop with the lies. Stop with blaming the victim. Stop with looking at a government and thinking that everybody within that government is the same. It would be the same as saying that everybody who was living and breathing in America during the tenure of Donald Trump was like Donald Trump, or it would be the same as looking at all the people in America today and saying they are the same as Joe Biden because the president is Joe Biden. Joe Biden is one man. The people are, the citizens of this country are, separate from him. And so it's important to not generalize and not look at a country as the leader. And even though sometimes somebody gets elected with a lot of votes, he doesn't get all the votes. And sometimes people vote for somebody, and that person is not representative of their value. It's just the least of two bad choices. Um, so talking about Israel and Hamas and about moral disengagement, it's very important for you when you look at Palestinians that we don't judge the Palestinian for whoever the leaders are, and we don't judge the Israeli for whoever the leaders are. They are people, and they suffer and they bleed, and they have a heart. And so we need to humanize them. We need to look at them. We have to love them. We have to understand them. The one thing we should not accept is when senseless murder and acts of atrocities are being committed on people, and we watch that from afar and go, oh, they had it coming, or they had the wrong religion, or they asked for it, or they did something worse, so they deserve to be treated this way, or it's not as bad as it looks, or you must be exaggerating. They're not putting children in cages, or they're not beheading people, or they are not, bombing poor neighborhoods or whatever. When you look at the news that's coming out, and you're just like, they had it coming. That's when you need to question yourself. The way you fight moral disengagement is by having empathy, putting yourself in their shoes, understanding that an old person, wherever they live, goes through their own challenges, a young person goes through their challenges, that people suffer, they have a heart, they're people. And that if that would be happening to you, you would want people to look at you as a human being and not as a non-person. I don't even know what the word would be, really. On this note, I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.